All right, so we're on day 3 of the Libertarian Party convention, and I'll just say last night was the most surreal experience of my entire life. So you opened up for Donald Trump, you, Clint, and Michael Rectenwald, and I was photographing behind Secret Service. It's the wildest thing. I just want to get your take on the whole event.
I thought it was pretty surreal to me too. I kind of knew it was going to go like that. You know, I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy was here the night before? It's all blending together. Yeah. The night before, and he was getting huge applause breaks from the crowd. And then when he said, and that's why you need to vote for Donald Trump, it drew huge boos. And libertarians are not always the most composed people, and I kind of thought that's how it was going to go. But it was wild to watch it, and it was wild to watch Trump kind of shockingly to me not break from his teleprompter speech, even as he was getting booed out of the building. And so, it was kind of surreal. Yeah, so you were kind of like asking libertarians to be polite before, or respectful at least. You said to boo, wait for him to say something that's bad and then boo him. But then you were also asking for the MAGA people to like actually listen to what libertarians were saying. Right from the beginning, libertarians started booing him. What do you think of that and how that turned out? Well, young Liam, as you know, telling libertarians what to do is one of the most futile exercises in human experiments. So I thought that I kind of figured that was going to happen. The truth is that the remarks I said were more intended really to get the Trump supporters to listen to what I had to say. And I thought I kind of had to start by telling the libertarians, hey, listen, you do this to kind of bring them in, and then I could rattle off like what all of our issues are. So there was some strategy involved in that. I didn't think it was going to have much of an effect. But look, I was not completely correct on this, because my view was like, yeah, don't be, like college campus leftists about this. I would have, if I could have controlled everything, I'd say clap as he walks up to the stage, be respectful and quiet, and then the first time he says something bad, boo him for that. And if he says something good, you could cheer him for that. But I will say all of the media coverage of it was pretty much what I was looking for, and it's the most media coverage the Libertarian Party has ever gotten. Sure. And the story was pretty unanimous that Donald Trump came crawling to us for some votes, and we said no. And then hopefully that leads a lot of people to ask, like, well, why is that? What's the Libertarians' issue with Donald Trump? And we have a lot of great things that are not the same things as MSNBC's issues with Donald Trump. So hopefully people learn more about that. Yeah, so I saw in a Politico article, there was a paragraph where it was describing that Trump supporters were yelling, "We want Trump," and the Fed chants would drown out those Trump supporters. So, I mean, all those Trump supporters are going to go look up what is "and the Fed." I mentioned this in my speech that I knew one anecdotal story of someone who was like, hey, I liked what that guy was saying. I got to look up this Federal Reserve thing. And so that, I think, is whether we like it or not, that's what libertarians still have to do. I think there's a tendency amongst a lot of libertarians to kind of feel like, well, we've done that part, and everyone's heard of libertarianism, and they've either decided they like it or they reject it. But it's just not, objectively, that's just not true, man. There's so many people out there. We all know people. I know people in my family who still don't really know what libertarianism is. You know what I mean? Like, they know a little bit because I don't shut up about it, but even they could learn. And so we have to accept that we're still in the Ron Paul evangelical phase of libertarianism, where we have to introduce these ideas to more people. Yeah, so I heard you just back here talking to RFK supporters, and he tried to seek the nomination. Donald Trump did too, which was weird. That was another thing that happened last night that was very strange. Donald Trump asked us to nominate him. I did not expect that. I did not expect that either. Yeah, I was surprised. Yeah, but so you were talking to the RFK supporters. I just want to hear your take on why he didn't get the nomination. Well, look, I mean, if I'm just being completely honest, I think he didn't get the nomination because, look, by definition, people in the Libertarian Party are already people who don't want to compromise on what they believe in. And if they did, they'd probably be a member of one of the two major parties that wins sometimes. Yeah. And they're over here saying, we need to plant a flag in the ground and be libertarians. And he's not a libertarian. So he would have had a very tough time either way. But for me personally, and I think what was the death blow for his campaign, has been his position on the war in Gaza, if you can even call it a war, when you just slaughter a captive people. But whatever that is, around here it is, look, I mean, if you saw the presidential debates for our candidates, it's unanimous. And there might be one or two people who disagree with that in that room, but it is as close to unanimous as it could be that we do not support America funding wars abroad that are not wars of necessity. They're wars of choice, from the American perspective at least, certainly wars of choice, and that are horrifically immoral. And so that's just, that stuff is not going to fly around here.
Yeah, so since you brought up the wars, I'm just wondering what you thought of Trump's handling of the foreign policy issue last night.
Right. Well, I like that. I like that his talking point is, I'm the first one to start no new wars. But it's also just like, I mean, if you think about it, like, it's a crazy thing to even, like, I'm saying I'm glad he knows that that's the talking point, rather than the talking point being, I killed so many terrorists or something like that. But, you know, it's like saying I started no new wars is kind of like saying I didn't beat my wife additionally. You know what I mean? It's like, but the expectation is that there'd be none of them. And the fact is also that Donald Trump continued a whole lot of wars. I'll give him some credit for working out the deal to end the war in Afghanistan. But you look at Syria, Iraq, Yemen, awful track record on Saudi Arabia, Israel, Iran. I mean, all the things that libertarians care about. He was awful in all of these conflicts, not to mention the sending the weapons into Ukraine that had as a huge provocation. And Donald Trump is largely responsible for the current situation in Ukraine and the current situation in Gaza. Not solely responsible, but largely responsible. And so for him to just sit there and say, it never would have happened if I was in, is, look, I don't think it's true for Vladimir Putin. It is totally absurd to claim that Hamas wouldn't have attacked. They would have gone, we can't do this to President Trump or something like that. It just makes no sense. So I didn't think, I'm not trying to put down anybody else, but I will say that I think the average IQ is a bit higher over here at the Libertarian Party than in the general public. And I just think stuff like that was just never going to sell with us.
Well, and it does seem that the narrative around Trump right now, like if you listen to people like Lindsey Graham and they're talking about his upcoming campaign, they're trying to spin the anti-war narrative that's going on in that camp to be more of like a Reaganite peace through strength type of thing. So they're like I was watching Fox News and the argument was he's anti-war, he sent the weapons in, Biden should have sent more in.
Right.
You know, and now he's celebrating this weapons package, this most recent.
No, I mean, it's identical logic to like if Obama's stimulus package was bigger, then they would have turned the economy around more, right? Yeah, if we had just only sent more weapons in, then Vladimir Putin would have been, oh no, they mean business or something like that. It's absurd. It's look, when they sent the weapons in, they said this is going to be deterrence, and okay, look, at best case scenario, it didn't deter, but at a much more reasonable telling of events, it was a provocation. And so that's a lesson that Americans have really sorely needed to learn for a long time now. But there is such a thing as provocation. And we know this pretty well because people provoke us all the time and we react to it.
Last night.
Well, sure. But look, the terror wars followed 9/11, right? We were responding to something happening to us. So why is it that we assume that nobody else around the world is going to operate the same way that we do?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, so another major thing that happened this weekend is that Angela McArdle was reelected as chair. And I think it's so significant because, you know, we're really cementing our control over the party. She followed through with her promise. She brought Ron Paul back to the party. This is the first time in decades that he's actually been officially acknowledged by the Libertarian Party. In Reno, we invited him to the Mises Bash, but the party wouldn't invite him. So I just wonder what you think about that.
Oh, it's incredible. And like it's maybe not a libertarian thing to say, but it is a crime that it's been so long and Ron Paul hasn't been invited. And if you just look at it, it's not just the Mises Caucus. The entire room out there loves Ron Paul. And not the sole reason, but a huge reason why the Mises Caucus is in control of this party and is going to continue to be in control of this party is because the former chair went out of his way to attack our greatest hero, Ron Paul. And that guy has now been thoroughly rejected, and Ron Paul is like the most beloved figure as he always has been. And you know, there's been a small group in the Libertarian Party who just complained and bitched and moaned about the Mises Caucus up to the takeover in Reno, and they've spent the last 2 years bitching and complaining in this. But at the end of the day, You couldn't organize enough people. For all the complaints you have, you still couldn't organize enough
Yep.
people to take this back from us. So I am kind of hoping for once that some of these people, like, I've been over backwards to be very kind and done the liberty unity thing and like tried to deal in good faith with everyone. My patience is kind of worn out at this point. It's like, if you want to like help advance this party and be a part of this, that's wonderful. We want as many people as we can have. If you want to just sit back and bitch and complain and keep doing that, hey, guess what? You lost again. Beat it. Go do something else. Go be the best Democrat.
Yeah.
There's so many of these guys who would be the best Democrat in the Democratic Party. You go do that. I think that's fine. But I think that Angela being reelected was like a pretty clear signal that this is the continuation of the takeover.
Yeah, 100%. So you just gave an endorsement speech for Rectenwald in there. Wondering if you can just make the case for listeners for Rectenwald. He might be elected the president here soon, or nomination for president.
I'm
here
hoping.
Soon, so.
I'm hoping he is. And look, I mean, the case basically is that the job for an LP presidential candidate is to be an educator, you know, and that's what Ron Paul at his best was. That's what Harry Brown at his best was. And Michael Rectenwald is the guy, but very clearly, who's most equipped to do that. And people, you know, can compare the candidates that we have to like some standard of perfection or something like that. But if you're saying who's the best candidate running, that's my feeling, is that that's Michael Rectenwald. I will say there's good candidates up there, and I think they were all really good on the war and peace issue, and that meant a lot to me. But Michael Rectenwald's the best guy for this job.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dave.
You're the man, Liam. Thank you very much. All right.
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
My pleasure, man.